All right, here are 3 things you can do right now to not be hated as a salesperson. For example, let's say if I sold cars. I'm a car salesperson. I'm at this great luxury dealership here for vehicles. I've got 3 things that I need to do, and whatever you sell, you want to do these 3 things as well. Number 1. I need to learn how to take the focus off of me and put it on who? The prospect. Now, why is that so critical for you to understand? Because most salespeople feel like the more they talk, the more they sell. Studies prove that that's not the case. The best salespeople in the world, top 1%, are far better at listening and asking the right questions at the right time to actually get that prospect to want to engage. I'm going to show you a few techniques on how to do that in just a second that you can apply to what you sell. Number 2, this is probably one of the most important for you to really master, is you have to learn how to disarm the prospect where they let their guard down. Now, why is that so important for you to really understand? Let's say if you walk into this car dealership right now, okay? What is probably the biggest objection you're probably gonna hear in the first 10 to 15 seconds if you sell retail or anything? Hey, welcome into the store today. How can I help you? And what do most prospects say? Oh, I'm just looking, right? On average, right? Would you say that would be the case, okay? So how do I disarm that prospect where they let their guard down and don't actually give me that objection? I'm gonna show you this technique, okay? And then I'll show you a few other techniques for some different industries that you can apply too, okay? Let's say they come in. If I already know I'm gonna get that objection by asking that question, I'm going to feed that objection back to them. Okay, for example, I can do this. Hey, welcome into the dealership. Are you guys just kind of out looking around? See how I'm doing that? Yeah, okay. And do you know what you're possibly looking for? See how I'm just giving them the objection? Because if you sell retail, anything like that, or a car dealership, and somebody walks in and they say, I'm just looking, doesn't it feel awkward after that? You don't really know what to do, or you maybe go some other way, or you try to, start talking to them and their guard goes up even more. So I'm just going to feed that objection back into them and just like, hey, are you guys just out kind of looking around today? Just kind of lets their guard down. And then I start to lean in. Yeah, do you know what you're possibly looking for? Notice how I'm saying possibly looking for. That's a neutral word to keep the guard down. Now, why do I not want to assume the sale that quick? Because number 1, it's the biggest reason why prospects' guard goes up, because how much trust or credibility do you have in the first 30 seconds of a sales conversation? 0, right? So my first job is to get them to let their guard down, disarm them so they become open to having a conversation, okay? And then as I start to build that gap from where they are to where they want to be, there's far more trust, more credibility, then I can be far more assumptive at that point. So that is step number 2. How do you disarm the prospect to let their guard down? Now, you're probably thinking right now, Jeremy, how do I do this for my industry? And I'll show you that in just a second. I'll even give you a number you can text me with some questions, okay? The third thing I have to do is I'm going to ask you this question. What's the first thing you start thinking about in your mind when a salesperson starts talking to you about what they sell? Could it be, how much is this gonna cost? Would that be a question your brain automatically goes to when you first start talking to a salesperson? Yes. Now, if you're thinking that question, are your prospects probably thinking that same question? And is that a question you want them to dwell on? Probably not. Now, why do you not want them to dwell on how much is this going to cost? Because if they continually think about the price or cost, what's going to be on their mind when you try to close? The price or the cost. I can't afford it. I don't have the money. I don't have the budget. So if they're continually thinking about that, you're not getting them to focus on the outcome they want. We call that results-based thinking. So how do I take them from price or cost-based thinking? That's step number 3 for you to do. How do I take them from price or cost-based thinking to results-based thinking, where now they're completely focused on the outcome or the end result that they want? When you get them into that mindset, that frame of mind, that means in their mind, the price or cost is not that big of a deal compared to the result they're after or want. Are you getting what I'm throwing down here? Okay. So those are 3 things you can do right now to actually start to get your prospects to let their guard down and not be hated. Because if you really think about in sales, okay, sales in general, whether you sell cars, whether you sell home improvement, whether you sell luxury yachts, whether you sell cybersecurity to Bank of America, it doesn't matter, B2C, B2B, door to door, it's all the same. How does society view you, the salesperson? Would you say they view the salesperson in society as a high status or low status? I think we all agree, you know this, it's low status. But the question is, why? Because if nothing is sold, think about this for a second. If nothing is ever sold, there's no such thing as a what? An economy. And if there's no such thing as an economy, because there's nothing that's sold, that means in reality, there's no such thing as a society, because things have to be bartered and sold for the society to exist. So in that frame of thought, wouldn't it make sense that your role is a higher status role, like a doctor or an attorney? Now, what is the reason why it's not? Because of the way most of us were trained how to communicate, right? So if I'm walking into a luxury car dealership or any type of car dealership or anything, or I'm looking for anything, it's not like I don't want to buy. It's not like I'm not out after something. Even if I'm cold calling and I'm talking to a prospect, it's not like that prospect or their company doesn't have problems that you can solve. People, you've heard this before, people love to buy, they just don't love to be sold. Now, that's kind of a cliche thing in sales, but let's break it down to what that actually means. When we say people don't love to be sold, that means the techniques that typically most salespeople have been taught make the prospect feel what? Like they're being sold, like they're being manipulated. And I want to ask you this question right here. This is really important. Is selling something that you do to people, or is selling something you do for people? Are you doing it to them, like to manipulate them, like this is bad, you're just trying to make money? Because if we have that mindset that we're doing this to them, when we go to close, because we feel, what are we going to feel when we go to close? If we feel like we're doing it to them, manipulate them, like it's a bad thing, we're going to have anxiety and we're going to have fear, and it's going to come out in our certainty, our tonality, our body language, right? If I understand I'm doing this for them, okay, because if I don't get them to open up, if I don't disarm them, if I don't get them to open up emotionally to me and tell me really what the real problems are and where they're wanting to be or go, or where they want to be as a company, organization, or an individual, whatever you sell, that means they don't buy. That means their problems stay the same. That means they stay in the status quo and nothing ever changes. So if I don't master how to sell and communicate, that means they don't buy. That means their problems stay the same. And whose responsibility is that? That's ours, the salesperson. Are you starting to understand this? Okay. So whatever you sell, make sure you start following those three things that I told you. Step number one, take the focus off you, put it on them. That's very key. And I think most of you know that. Number two is where we see a lot of salespeople that come into our training programs or companies, they don't really know how to do this, is how do you disarm the prospect where they let their guard down? Now, scientifically, what that means, when I say disarm the prospect, that means how do I calm their nervous system where they relax and they feel comfortable enough to open up? That's what I mean by disarming the prospect. And then third, how do I take them from price or cost-based thinking, come with me, to results-based thinking, where now the price seems comparatively pretty small compared to the end result they want. Because let's say if I sold for this dealership here, these are luxury cars. In your mind, does a $500,000 Rolls Royce here, or like, I don't know how much, maybe this is $700,000 back here for this Lamborghini, does it really solve a problem? Well, unless you're, in Formula One racing, it probably doesn't solve a problem, because if you want to go from point A to point B, you can drive a 2005 used Honda. What does it solve? It solves an emotional need. Think about it for a second, okay? So it solves an emotional need. So it solves, this person that's buying this type of vehicle, they obviously want a little bit of status. So maybe they moved into a neighborhood and they notice a lot of their neighbors have luxury cars and they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not fitting in. I need people to view me a different way. So it solves that emotional need. Maybe they were a kid in high school and they were picked on. And now that they become successful, they want to show people they knew 20 years ago that they've arrived, that they're really successful. And this car gives them that status to do that. Maybe their parents said they've never amounted to anything in life. And now that they're successful, they want to show their parents that they've arrived, that they have this need. So we solve an emotional need. Now, most products or services actually do both, solve problems and emotional needs. So always think about that. How do you tie in your questions to help them find problems they didn't understand and solve those emotional needs. Because if I'm looking for this type of car, right, to build that status, that means what do I fear? I have a fear of not being viewed as significant, right? So I want to show people I'm significant, I'm somebody. That's why I drive this car. This is me. This is my identity. Okay. So you want to master selling, which I know you do. You're committed to mastery. Text us with questions. I'll help you. 480-637-2944. Hope that gave you a little bit. And go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you want training like this. I'll see you soon.